a gorgeous dress. Now we have a hot mic.
Still costs us thousands of dollars to do that too. I don't want to take the main road. Because we don't do the main road at Fairfield Inn, we don't do the main road at Publix. We don't do the main road that goes up to the nursing home. It would be like stupid for us to do that.
I'm sure they'll have that conversation.
Probably gonna say no. I'm gonna say whatever our original agreement was, that's what we should do.
So we need to, I don't know if they've gone back and checked the minutes, but that's one thing we should do.
Yes.
And so of course, the original developer acquired that road from the shopping center because he knew he was gonna have to do something up there, like they decided to build a circle.
No, that's all.
We didn't want him to. I'll tell you this, we got 1 minute. It takes a big circle to do the roundabout because you got to put a 53-foot trailer through.
And from us, they're gonna drive the trailers across it.
That's what.
But it just doesn't look like to me there's room, but they seem to
I'm pretty
think
sure
there is.
there's not.
Oh, darn. Thanks, Tamara.
Okay, you can sit around tonight.
That's the
That's
answer.
right. We can zoom through this.
Is it they only have 6?
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
When I talked to him about the circle down here, they informed me that there was not enough room.
I don't think there's enough room here, unless they're gonna acquire property from Lowe's and.
And that takes, I don't think they want to do that.
Good evening and welcome to the Weaverville Town Council meeting on Monday, April 28th, 2025. So council members, you've had an opportunity to review the agenda in advance. Are there any adjustments to be recommended to the agenda? Or if not, is there a motion to approve the agenda as written?
Move we approve the agenda as written.
Thank you, sir. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. It is the duty of the mayor and every town council member to avoid conflicts of interest and the appearance of such. Are there any issues tonight that any member of council may have a conflict of interest with? Good deal. Move on to the consent agenda. Town Manager Harris, would you go through the items in tonight's consent agenda?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. On page 2 is your monthly tax report. A summary of the tax report is provided to you showing 99.01% of the town's property tax has been collected by at the end of March. This totals $4,258,978.99 out of the $4,301,681.64 in March. Property tax levy release funds were $69.26, and for motor vehicle levy, it was $135.13. On page 8, you have a budget amendment. And just to give you a little more insight, tonight's quarter report is from Tanya in the Finance Department, and she will talk a little more about budget amendments and how those are done in that process. But for tonight's town budget amendment, the town received $262,560 in fees in lieu of sidewalks from the LDG development, which some of you may recall, which is our affordable housing complex going in. And that is in lieu of sidewalks. So that money will be transferred to the capital reserve fund and held until the sidewalks can be constructed. Budget amendment totaling $75,711 are needed in the governing body administration to cover expenses related to personnel changes, town manager contracts, and legal services. The police department received a donation of $30 from a member of the public. A water maintenance vehicle was involved in an accident with the driver of the other vehicle being deemed at fault. That vehicle was declared a total loss. The town received $18,503 in insurance proceeds. Again, you have the attached budget amendment as necessary to include those funds in the current fiscal year. So, moving along to page 11, for your extension of the tax collection agreement. The town first entered into an agreement with Buncombe County in June of 2020 for the collection of tax for real property, business, personal, and personal property located within the town of Weaverville. Our most recent extension agreement was approved in May of '23 and extended that agreement through June 30th of '25. The county has provided the attached extension for your review, collection agreement for consideration. This agreement will carry forward the existing terms for the upcoming 3 fiscal years with an end date of June 30th of '28. Moving along to page 14. The annual presentation of the town manager's delegated policies. In accordance with Section 6, Article 1 of the town's personnel policy, the manager presents councils and policies that have been adopted by the town manager and are allowed in personnel policy. You had the attached policy and procedure manuals to show the delegated policies are highlighted in orange. Just to give you an update, one of the things I continue to do is go through our personnel policy and see what is working and what is not working and where we can make changes. So in the future, there'll be some other policies coming back to you for review. Page 21. No, I'm sorry, I almost skipped that one. Getting on 16. A water commitment on page 16, reallocation. Town granted a water commitment for a 50-unit townhouse project to be located at 6 Pleasant Grove Road, dated 23 January of 2024. The applicant and developers indicated that the project is underway, but they have not yet started construction of the water system. The applicant and developer is requesting a 1-year extension of the water commitment on that above project. Conditions have changed, plans by a reduction of 43 units and requested water usage amount has changed to 17,200 gallons per day, rounded to 20,000 gallons per day, on an application dated 17 March 2025. And as with the original water request, Public Works Director has found that at this time there is sufficient capacity within the town's water system to provide this project with water without affecting existing customers. Now moving to page 21. We have a minor modification to the Advent Health Project. Ongoing site preparation for Advent Health Hospital campus calls for the construction of several retaining walls. Because these walls are taller than 10 feet, a building permit is required from the county, therefore a zoning permit is required. The application and site plan for the zoning permit shows a minor modification specification to these retaining walls that staff has administratively approved as per section 1303. Changes to the prior approved development. In short, the number of retaining walls has been reduced from 7 as shown on the original plans down to 4. And with it being a conditional zoning district, those types of changes are required to come back before council. Moving to page 38. The code amendment, conditional district to set a public hearing. The current goals of the comprehensive land use plan, last updated in January of '25, calls for a continuous review of the zoning regulations. The goal was to give a number 2 priority and has been the practice of staff to bring forth text amendments when difficulties are encountered. And attached, you'll see the difficulties described and related to the conditional districts. Council was asked to set a public hearing on that matter for May 19th of 2025 at 6 p.m. In the council chambers here. So, and that concludes your consent agenda.
Thank you, sir. Are there any questions or comments regarding the consent agenda? If not, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, sir. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, thank you. Manager Harris, keep going with tonight's town manager's report.
The manager's report. The first item you'll see on your manager's report is the Firehouse Subs Public Safety Foundation grant that was awarded to the fire department for a non-matching fund of $35,154.18 for the purchase of a Zodiac rescue boat with motor and trailer. And this is for our Swift Water team and will be similar to the one that you have pictured in your packet there. But real quick, while I'm on that, let me kind of clear up some clarification as we talked about apparatus and boats and different things in the fire department, what some of them does. Because one of the questions in the previous budget meeting was with the rescue truck itself, responding mutual aid. That truck is primarily used in our district. The way I would, with everybody around us having rescue vehicles as well, the way I would clarify that is it's more a high risk, low frequency incident when it goes to the mutual aid. For example, if we're assisting Rims Creek rappelling down off the side of Blue Ridge Parkway, they're going to need additional personnel with different ropes and links like that. If you get a tractor trailer overturned on I-26, and it's in Woodfin's district or Barnesville or Jupiter, they may call us to assist them in that. So, but the primary response is still in our district, just kind of, and I think I misspoke or misled you when we were talking about responsive apparatus. So I want to clear that up while we were talking about extra proceeds and equipment that the fire department uses. Moving along to the police department training and standards audit.
Let me interrupt for
Yes,
just a minute,
sir.
Sky. So they're gonna, the folks who helped us get this grant from the Firehouse Subs are doing a little presentation next Saturday, I believe?
Yes.
And so is anyone able to attend that? I will not be.
When is it?
May 3rd, Saturday?
No,
I'm
the
not sure what
4th on
time.
that Sunday, I believe it is, that Sunday.
Sunday?
Yes, sir.
Oh,
I'll
Scotty,
find out.
if you can go, Scotty, we'll tell you when and where it is.
Okay, all right.
Anyway.
But yeah, they're basically hosting like a touch a truck, and the fire department will be participating in that on site as well, and they'll have all kinds of vehicles out there. It's a family-friendly environment for that, and again, they've been very generous in their donation all across this county. We weren't the only ones to receive that, so we'll take the opportunity to support them as we can. So, any other questions on that, sir?
No.
All right.
Scotty, I
Yes, sir.
should be available to do that. Give
Okay.
me the date and time.
Yes, sir, I'll get it to you, and I'll send it out to all the council as well. So, thank you. The police department on their trainings and standards audit, Chief Oakland and her staff recently participated in the department's first training and standard audit. The audit revealed no deficiencies, and the department was commended on the record keeping. Rims Creek Fire Department, just to kind of give you an update on that. As previously mentioned, the Rims Creek Fire Department has had some changes in their leadership. We've continued to meet with their fire chief to discuss collaboration and partnerships in that area, providing staffing in their station. The board voted at their April meeting against going that route, but I have reached back out to their chief, asking if we can meet and discuss the topic further and answer any questions their board may have. The water wheel update.
That's discouraging, Scotty, because what we're doing there was a progressive solution. Is there any reason, do we understand why they want to back out?
Again, as they go through leadership changes, I mean, I guess they're evaluating, and my understanding their board changes is either July or August coming up timeframe, as well as their interim chief, and they, which was appointed in January. So with him being interim, and the other chief going out, who we had the agreement, we are not sure if that's part of them wanting to further evaluate everything from during this trying time, everything from their finances to staffing, or how we collaborate, looking at opportunities going forward. I mean, they're still part of our automatic mutual aid, so we still do have a good working relationship with them. Chief Hunter continues to meet with Chief Dorsey, who is the Rims Creek chief now, on a regular basis, and work on how we get to that point to be able to provide that service delivery to the entire community, not just the Weaverville community, but everybody in that area as well. So, and strengthen that force multiplier. Give you an update on the water wheel. Under FEMA's guided and direction, the plan on the water wheel restorations are proceeding. It is currently being built and reassembled will be reassembled on site. A setback in place at the end of June, if all goes well. We are not able to make it operational as originally planned due to complicated permitting and constructions within the waterway. Basically FEMA's guidance on that is it's going to have to go for reimbursement purposes, going to have to go back pretty much exactly like it was when it came out and was damaged during the storm in order to receive funding on that. But again, getting to the or challenges where it sets in that waterway, it's more than just in the floodplain, it'll actually be in the waterway itself, so which brings on some new challenges. PPDR, the private property debris removals, we received approximately 20 applications for debris from Debris Tech, who handled our intake process. I sent Debris Tech the information that they requested on the applications that were approved. These applications either have been or will be sent to FEMA for final approval to ensure that they meet the reimbursements required prior to the work starting. I have talked back with Angie from Debris Tech last week, as well as some residents that called in who were on the list, and give them an update of kind of where they were at in that process. Debris Tech was late getting started last week due to some weather and some rain, and not wanting to damage people's property as they go in there to remove the trees with the rain we had. So Basically, they are still waiting some final approval on some other properties from FEMA, but that process has started, and they are looking forward to doing the work. And we only had, I think, 3 that did not meet the criteria out of the initial round that was sent in for approval. On the Arbor Day celebration, the town's Arbor Day event was held on April 10th in the Main Street Nature Park. Extend my gratitude to the tree board, Councilmember Cordell and Ms. Tamara Mercer for their efforts toward a successful event. Also like to recognize and thank Rims Creek Nursery for its generous donation of the red oak that was planted, and Russ Kramer, chairman of the tree board, for his donation of the tree seedlings to the primary school students that participated in the program. The I-26 bridge demolition, DOT reports that they will be shifting traffic to the newly constructed I-26 bridge over Quarry Road and demolishing the existing bridge sometime the first few weeks of May. This will affect some of the town's operations, but should not affect the public other than the traffic on 26 itself. Pickleball, public works staff is in the process of ordering and installing some additional sound barriers panels at the pickleball courts. The wastewater treatment plant resiliency project, the generator installation and chlorine gas conversion projects at the water treatment plant are out to bid. TAN staff was involved in the grant scoping meeting with the EPA on the use of the $1 million EPA grant, and we're hoping to be able to use those funds to reimburse the town for purchases of those generators and some of the engineering fees related on that project and the expansion. As you know, I've transitioned to the town manager role, requiring us to backfill the fire chief's position. And if we will tonight, if we'll have Chief Hunter has been appointed as and hired as the new fire chief. So if he'll make his way to the podium along with his family, his fiance Shayna and daughter Audrey, if y'all will come forward with Chief Hunter, and we'll do the oath, and his family's going to do the badge pinning tonight. So. They'll do it at the podium, or you want to do it here? Where you want to do it? Okay, do it here so it's on camera. Okay.
I, Michael Hunter, do solemnly and sincerely swear that I will support the Constitution and laws of the United States, that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the state of North Carolina and to the constitutional powers and authorities which are or may be established for the government thereof, that I will endeavor to support, maintain, and defend the Constitution and laws of said state, not inconsistent with the Constitution of the United States, to the best of my knowledge and ability, and I will faithfully discharge the duties of my office as fire chief for the town of Lee. So help me.
Thank you. I will sign it after.
Thank you. He ain't bleeding yet.
If it'd been the pen anyway.
Thank you. And again, just a little background on that. I'm pleased to announce that Deputy Chief Hunter has been promoted to fire chief. Chief Hunter has been with Weaverville Fire Department for 17 years, serving in every operational position. In 2009, Chief Hunter was promoted to the rank of captain. 2017 is promoted to the rank of battalion chief in charge of a shift, and in 23 promoted to deputy chief, overseeing our operations and training division. Chief Hunter has an associate's in fire protection technology, a bachelor's in fire administration, and is currently working on his master's in executive leadership with a concentration in emergency management. And I appreciate his family coming out tonight and pinning his badge on him. He had no idea that they were showing up, so I reached out to him earlier today. So that red you see on his face isn't just from where he just got back from vacation. So again, completing the manager's report, upcoming town meetings on May 6th, the planning board meeting. May the 13th is our budget workshop and public hearing. And May the 19th, a regular town council meeting. And May the 26th is Memorial Day, and town offices will be closed for the holiday. That concludes your manager's report.
Thank you, Manager Harris, appreciate it, and congratulations, Chief Hunter. Glad to have you on in that role. Next item up is the general public comments, and I don't think this has ever happened before, but no one has signed up to speak tonight. What's with that? I'm gonna give you all one last chance. No? Great.
Going once, going twice, and gone.
Over. Next, we're on item 7 on your agenda, which is discussion and action items, and the first item up is Helene Recovery Update and Community Input, and Rachel Sawyer from the county is here to give us a presentation. First of all, Rachel Sawyer is also a member of Weaverville's fine town.
Close. I live in a 28787 zip code, but am not a town resident.
Well, we'll have to fix that.
So good evening, Mayor and Vice Mayor and members of council. My name is Rachel Sawyer, and I work for Buncombe County Government as the Director of Strategic Partnerships, which is essentially a grants and funding office at the county. And one recent time that you might have seen my name come up was last summer and heading into early last fall when we were working on the open space bond funding, and we had a passive recreation process going on. And that seems like ages ago, because little did we know at that time we were about to be faced with Hurricane or Tropical Storm Helene, which is the reason that I'm here tonight. I'm going to share with you a little bit about recovery planning and make an appeal for members of the public to participate in a community engagement survey that we have going on. The reason I'm your representative here is County Manager Avril Pinder has designated me to be the lead, the recovery lead for Helene for Buncombe County Government. Before I head into the slides, I just wanted to reflect back a little bit. I heard Manager Harris referring to swift water rescues and mutual aid agreements, and it's been 7 months-ish since the event, and certainly as we reflect back, we're reminded just how massive and catastrophic an effort it was. And my point of privilege is really just to offer a thank you to the town and its residents and community for all of the support that you provided to residents and to the broader community. Thinking back to those early days, we were without power and without utilities like ability to text and call and communicate, and many of our early coordinating efforts, whether it was in those rescue moments or in the weeks and months to follow, were focused on things like sheltering and access to food. Main Street businesses were pivoting and becoming community hubs where people could access basic needs. The further that we have gotten away from the event, the further we have shifted out of response mode and into recovery mode. But it has taken longer than what you might imagine for like a normal or typical disaster or tropical storm. Buncombe County, I don't have these numbers split up by the individual towns, but Buncombe County as a whole, we had, the latest numbers are showing 368 homes that were completely destroyed, another 734 residential housing units that had major damage, and over 11,000 that had some damage. Add it all up, that's like 8% of our total residential housing stock. So a really significant damage in the housing space. We had over 1,000 reported landslides, 400 or more of which were reported to have damaged structures or roads. Speaking of roads, our area has a lot of private roads and private bridges, and over 300 were either washed out or damaged. You also mentioned FEMA during your manager's report. I was looking at the latest data on not the public assistance side, which is how the town gets its assistance, but on the individual and households side. And in Buncombe County, we are at 60,146 households that have been approved for FEMA individual assistance. People can still apply even though the deadline has passed if there's some reason that they couldn't make it to apply previously. Plus, some residents are still going through paperwork and other kind of appeal document processes, so that number is climbing, 10 or 12 a day. That 60,000 plus households represents almost 58% of the total households in Buncombe County. A lot of them were that serious needs assistance that we hear about, that $750,000 $750 entry-level assistance. But also, many have gotten help for those destroyed homes, bridges, other major things. So that's just kind of a picture of thinking back the territory that we covered in Helene, and now we are looking forward into recovery. It's a best practice for communities and organizations to take on long-term recovery processes. If you're noticing that the slides on the screen don't look like the slides in your notebook, I will take responsibility for that. I think what you got was a copy of, and maybe what published in the packet was a copy of what I had shared with the managers last month. So the slides here on the screen are more for the elected officials and the public. But as a town of Weaverville or county of Buncombe, when we think about what is a long-term recovery plan and why engage in it, it really helps us organize how we assess what needs were left over, the impacts that were left over in the wake of a disaster, names what's important to accomplish, and articulates some projects that we would put forward, and ultimately helps us with our priority setting and hopefully with fundraising so that we can carry out the various projects to help residents and help businesses and infrastructure throughout our community get back to previous condition or better, building back in a more resilient way is one of the themes that we hear a lot. So the way that we are approaching recovery planning here locally is following the lead of state and federal partners. We have been in an emergency operations center and had the benefit to sit alongside North Carolina Emergency Management and lots of different federal level organizations, including this part of FEMA called Community Assistance, who specializes in recovery planning, to look at how do other communities do this. And so it shows you an example of Lahaina, who had wildfires in Maui, or Lyons, Colorado, that had floods pretty similar to ours, what their recovery plans looked like. We offered an opportunity to the towns because we had been doing so much work together during the response phases. Our county manager had the municipal managers and then their various department heads getting together probably more than once a week in the early days, and then as we were figuring out debris plans and various other action plans, really trying to look at how it made sense to do that together across jurisdictions. So we're excited that Weaverville's interested in doing a coordinated recovery plan. We would each look at our own authorities as a local government and identify what projects might we take on to best use the resources we have within those areas that we do work. So as a town, for example, has a public works and streets within your span of control, or fire or public safety. A county government has a public health department and social work and some different components. So each local government will be responsible for coming up with whatever projects make most sense and then carrying out those projects. But within this overall unified plan that will reflect what the City of Asheville's projects are, along with Biltmore Forest, Black Mountain, Montreat, and Woodfin, with the town and the county. We are using the spring to reach out and make sure that we're hearing from the public. We want to know what is important in recovery to our community. And Buncombe County is carrying out this general countywide community engagement. It's all based on a survey, and then we're carrying it out to meetings and places where people gather to talk with them and be in dialogue, and then ask them to complete the survey about what is important, what recovery themes matter most, and what kinds of projects do they think are important. So that Envision Buncombe survey, I'll show you in a second. So that's the community engagement that is underway, and each of our jurisdictions are busy looking at what projects might make most sense, given our span and our resources, et cetera. As we head into the fall, we will be bringing draft plans to our elected boards. We are currently looking at a timeline of September, a year from the event, rolling a draft plan out for the public to see. So the councils and commissioners would preview that plan and then call for public comment on it to make sure we captured the kinds of things that the community said were important to them. And then we would finalize or adopt our plans, each with our own authorities, in November-ish. Sometimes we have like the seasons on there because we're still kind of figuring this out. We need to give ourselves some wiggle room. And then, of course, this is building the plan while we're also carrying out recovery. So some of the near-term projects we might be beginning on right away. Maybe a funding source opens up. I saw the state of North Carolina has their small biz grants open already for infrastructure. So we might get going on some things, whereas some might be very truly long-term that are in the 5 or 10 or 20-year window. So back to the Envision Buncombe, here's some nice branding that had come to us from the Communications and Public Engagement Department from Buncombe County Government. The website address is engage.buncombecounty.org/Envision Buncombe, but if you point your phone at the QR code, it also lands you there. You'll see that coming out hopefully in town newsletters or social media or various touch points in the coming weeks. We plan to leave the survey open through May. So if you have personal channels to spread the word about it, we are collecting the zip code, no, not the zip code, the town residency of each respondent so that we can give Weaverville back your specific responses to drill down specifically on what your residents say is important to them as they think about the future post-Helene. Just a quick plug, I mentioned previously that there still are resources out there. I saw a flyer on the door as I came in. Buncombe County is operating a Helene Resource Center at the old tax office on Cox Avenue at the corner of Ashland. The address is 94 Cox Avenue. We also have a phone number, which is our One Buncombe hotline, which is 250-6100. Both the phone number and the center are open Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. And there are multilingual options for the survey. That's all, pending any questions.
Any questions for Rachel? So I just want to say, Rich, I'm really glad to see the county taking this lead, because right now we have a unique opportunity to build a more resilient future for our county. County's building a long-term recovery plan. We're just beginning a new strategic plan. The city just completed a CDG plan. And as governments, we often do these things in silos and never talk to each other. So here's a unique opportunity to connect these and find where there are commonalities and synchronicities that can build a better future for all of us. So I'm glad the county is reaching out. So hopefully we'll also look at what kind of shared infrastructure opportunities are there, and I'm sure Scotty will be glad to tell you how we benefit from having some shared infrastructure with neighboring towns during when we had no water, but they did, and we were able to get some. We can certainly look at how to expand that regional system. I'm also curious, so I'm glad to see all the governments are going to participate, but I know that there's other groups too, NGOs, for example, Riverlink is building a plan for riverfront redevelopment, and Mountain True is building a small area plan for Swannanoa. Are you going to try and reach out to those groups and engage and integrate their plans in as well?
Indeed, so many plans.
So many
I feel like you
plans,
said
they're
the word
everywhere.
plan a dozen times in that sentence. Yes. The decision that we made as governments is to establish our plan based on the resources, making sure that we're spending our money and our staff time toward the things that we have the sort of authority to act within, and we're part of a bigger community ecosystem where there is overlap and connection, certainly. So yes, we don't intend that the government is creating the end-all be-all plan for all of Buncombe County, the place, and we are paying attention to how those intersections can come to pass. And as an example, we've got these recovery support functions, which is kind of a boring behind-the-scenes way of organizing our recovery, but we've got these groups that come together by topic. So as an example, the business community, the city and county convene a business community meeting. So when the chamber puts together their plan, or Explore Asheville, et cetera, TDA, that we've been able to see both their input on the pieces that we're carrying out and our awareness of what they're working on.
Excellent, good work.
Yeah.
Any others? Any other comments? Thank you.
Thank
Good
you
luck.
for-
Have fun.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Next item up is item B, Northridge Farms Public Street Acceptance and Commitment Request. Assistant Manager Jackson, you want to lead us in on this?
Yes, good evening, Mayor, Council. I'm here today to sort of introduce or reintroduce a topic related to the Northridge Farms project. This is the large residential project that has received development approval from this board for the large acreage sort of at the south end of the Northridge Commons Shopping Center, south of Hobby Lobby. This Four Star is a developer, and they, back in November, I believe, purchased all of the properties that were originally part of this planned development. So they now own all of that property. And as part of that property acquisition, they also obtained ownership of the roads within Northridge Commons Shopping Center. That includes the main road being Northridge Commons Parkway. It includes North Crest Road, which is the road from the four-way stop up to Monticello Road. It also, I believe, includes some of the sort of the secondary tiered roads like Bettstrow Drive. So they currently own those, but they are private. Travis Fowler, who was the original lead developer on this, actually submitted a request to the town to have the town take over some of those roads. And Allie Seabaugh is here on behalf of Four Star, and she took a look at that request and modified it a bit. And so now what is before you is sort of an introduction of the concept of the town taking over the main roads, the main existing roads, which is Northridge Commons Parkway and North Crest Road, plus some of the main roads that they contemplate within the development once they're built. And the reason that this is important, obviously, they're in design right now, and if, based on the regulations that Town Council put in place, if you want, if a developer wants those roads to be taken over and made public, they need to do that on the front end, so they know what standards that they need to be built to, and just as importantly, they know, it tells our staff what inspection levels we need to do with those roads. And so they're here today wanting to sort of start this conversation. I know back several months ago when this was first brought up, there were some impediments to this, some challenges, obviously. The four-way stop is a bit of a pinch point that I think everybody has been worried about how that intersection is going to be able to carry the traffic associated with this large development. You'll see in your packet that they have been able to come up with a roundabout design in there that they feel like can work. They also have a traffic impact analysis that this was part of that it's very detailed. I did not put it in your packet, but it is available for those of you that do wish to look at it. Another difficulty was getting over Gill Branch at the end before you get to that development, that land to be developed. And the original concept was a bridge over Gill Branch. They have been able to redesign that as a culvert, and so it's not proposed as a bridge, the main one coming in. There's a second access from the Gill Branch Road side. Gill Branch Road side that goes over Gill Branch, and I'm not sure what the plan is for that one, but that section probably needs to remain private anyway, because that's your gated entrance. That's the exit, the emergency only exit, and obviously if we take a road in, it's got to be for public purpose, or for the open to the public, and so that one is not really considered in this. So we're here tonight, I'm here tonight just to introduce this, that we do have a representative from Four Star here that's happy. I don't know whether she has any comments or not, but she's, I'm sure, more than willing to answer some questions for you. Public Works Director Dale Pennell, I'm sure he has done a fair amount of legwork on this, looking at the original plans of some of these streets. But if you wish to go forward as this being a possibility of bringing these roads in, then he will very much like to take an opportunity to work with the developer to see if they can come up with a testing program similar to what you did with Maple Trace, looking at the stormwater, doing some core drillings just to test and see what the true condition of those existing streets are. The streets that are proposed but not yet built are much easier because that is a more controlled process, but the existing streets will need to be evaluated. Any questions of me?
Can we remember the date that the original roads were built to go to the Walmart and the Lowe's?
Do you remember? Okay. The answer is no. We can find that out. Did you hear that? The plans were approved in 2008. The question is when they were actually constructed, and we don't know the answer to that.
So this is quite distinguished from any other town roads, correct?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm assuming that might pose some maintenance and serviceability concerns. Is that a true statement?
Possibly. These are, so you'll come off of NCDOT streets to get to either the town streets or the private streets if we're maintaining garbage routes in there over a private street. Mm-hmm. Yes, but we do have examples where there are town streets that are kind of isolated off of a DOT street. I think that there are a fair number of examples of that, if that's the question.
Yes.
But we don't do Fairfield Inn Drive that goes by McDonald's and up to the inn by Bojangles. We don't do that. We don't do the road that goes between the two shopping centers where the Subway is that goes up to the care facility. We don't do the road that goes up to Publix and around behind where the bank is, Wachovia. I mean, I can't think of any roads that the town does that goes into businesses like that. Mostly we do residential roads. And after sitting on the DOT board for the past couple of years, I'm pretty sure that that is not big enough for a roundabout. I mean, granted, you can take more land from different places and probably make it bigger, but a roundabout has to be big enough for a 53-foot trailer on the back of a transfer truck to come around it.
So this one is a little bit of a unique design, and I hope that either Mr. Pennell or Ms. Seaball will correct me if I'm wrong, but this is a smaller roundabout design, and it's, instead of a planted median in the middle, it's just a curb. And so this would allow like a fire truck to essentially go straight over it instead of going around the curve, the curve of the circle. They could either bump two wheels up over the curb or drive straight through it.
Well, I'm sure
to
Lowe's
allow
gets
that
many
smaller.
trucks delivered every day.
Mhm.
So Lowe's trucks would be going right over it, just like a fire truck?
Yes.
It's to stop anybody from doing that.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds dangerous to me.
What could possibly go wrong?
It couldn't be worse than the four-way stop there is now.
Right.
I don't know, that
This
sounds
was-
worse.
This was a design that I think that the traffic impact engineers or traffic engineers came up with, and I'm sure if you would like, I'm happy to share the full analysis or report with you. But this was, they recommended that, I'm pretty sure.
I would like to take something like that to the DOT engineers to review. Yeah, because it sounds pretty dangerous that some trucks, big trucks that could kill you, can go straight across the middle, but little cars have to go around a circle.
What other questions?
So, I don't remember the name of Travis Fowler's company. I do remember working with Travis quite a bit. So Travis Fowler's company did make a request that we would take the roads within the development. Is that correct?
Both within the development and within the shopping center and within the proposed development. Yes, that was First Victory. They did submit that
First Victory,
request.
that was it, yes. But we, council took no action on that request at that point. Is that correct?
Yes, you held, knowing that a transfer of the development was actively happening, and so we were waiting for the current developer, the new developer at that time to really analyze that and make sure that they wanted to proceed with that public street commitment or what they wanted to revise it. And in this case, they actually did want to revise it because they removed some of the secondary roads from the shopping center, from the request. At this point, I think I guess what we're after is some work will need to be done if you want to consider taking these roads in as public streets, town streets. And so we're trying to get a consensus. Is there enough of a consensus that you want us to keep working on this? Or is the consensus at this point that you do not wish to proceed on this project? If that's the case, then we can stop those efforts and know that those roads will just remain private.
Well, what is the advantage to the town of taking them over? In the let's specify the residential. Let's just forget about the roundabout. But what advantage to the town would there be to take over the streets of the residential area?
Mr. Pennell may have some. What's coming off the top of my head is that you know that you've got a good quality street that's going to last for a while. The subdivision streets, the private subdivision streets, are not quite as rigorous as the town standards, and so those roads we know that they're going to be well maintained because we're in control of that. If you've got a street, a subdivision street, and there are plenty of examples out there where they're pretty broken. We've got garbage trucks and emergency vehicles that are crossing into those areas all the time. And so that's probably more wear and tear on our vehicles. But it does come as a trade-off.
If they remain private, would it be an HOA then that has to continuously maintain those streets?
We would have no control over that. It's up to the HOA to how vigorously they're actually maintaining those streets.
So if we did take the residential streets, then they'd have to be built to town standards, which are, above the state.
So what is the advantage to the town in taking over those other two streets, North Crest and Northridge Commons? Sorry. I said, is this better? Yes. What is the advantage to the town if we take over North Crest and Northridge Commons Road?
So I'll give my answer to that, and then I'm going to let Mr. Pennell offer his opinion on both of those questions or anything else. I think the big advantage, if you wish to take them, is that it does give the town a seat at the table to control some or have a voice in how traffic flows through there. That four-way intersection is very difficult, and we know that it is an area where we do see a fair number of accidents or near misses. I know every time you kind of hold your breath going through. So I think it does give the town a seat at the table for those conversations. Otherwise, you're dealing only with private property owners dealing with their private streets or DOT. And so by having the town being at that table, I think is advantageous, or could be advantageous.
In my mind, it's a question of liability. If the town takes over the streets, they're liable for things that happen there. So I mean, the argument that there are potential hazards and crashes or collisions or anything else that would be held against the town versus held against the owners of the roads.
Only if you're negligently designing the road, I would say.
Well,
Yeah.
if the town doesn't own the roads, then it falls on the,
Right.
DOT.
no, it would be.
No, that would be under
Building.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Couple of comments relative to the questions that you answered. One is, we would not recommend in any way that we take over any roads within the proposed development of Northridge Farms unless there's a public road connecting those roads to another public road. What we would not want to be in a position to do is to travel from DOT, the 2570 or the extension of the boulevard, on a private road through Northridge Commons shopping center, and then traverse those private roads to get to public roads, because we'd have no control over what is done with those roads, the condition of those roads, the maintenance of those roads, and so forth. So and we don't have that situation anywhere in town right now. Every road that we maintain as a town is accessed from either another town street or from a DOT road. So that's one factor. The other factor is the DOT roads, and I appreciate the update on the date, were probably built around 2009, 2010. So that's 15 years of age that they've experienced. And as we've discussed before, 20 is sort of the point where you are beginning to have some maintenance. I've ridden those roads like everyone has, going to Hobby Lobby or Walmart or Lowe's or Home Trust, and right now they're in relatively good shape. There's no issues like I've found with other roads before. These roads are in good shape. At one time, we were trying to repair a town water line on Northridge Commons Parkway, and we thought it was, and we have town lines in town easements throughout the entire development. And we thought this was one of them. It turned out to be an irrigation line, but the only way we found out was we excavated and down through about 11 inches of asphalt to get to the stone, that then we had to go through that to finally get to a water line. And that was an irrigation line. It wasn't our line anyway. But that road has withstood 15 years of considerable traffic to date. When you think about the number of tractor trailers that have been to Walmart or have been to Lowe's or the other stores there as well. So there's certainly some very considerable thought that needs to go into exactly what you do and how you do it. I'll leave it at that. Anything else I can answer?
So we normally pave roads every 20, 25 years?
Depending on funding from council.
Right, I agree. And it's a
but-
shame that we didn't have funding this year, but
I'm sorry.
anyway,
But yes, what we do is, every couple of years, we do a complete assessment of all 20 miles of our roads. We rate those roads depending on potholes, cracking, utility cuts, a number of factors, and give them a number. And 100 is a perfect road, and if you have a road that's in the very low numbers, that means it stands to be on the next list. And we'd like to be able to pave 1 mile of road a year, and that would be every 20 years we pave 1 mile, and the math works out perfectly. The last roads that we paved were more in the 25-year range, and some of those needed extensive reworking to bring them up to our standards.
what got me to asking that question is because if this was approved or designed in 2008, and I know we built in 2010, and I'm sure we bought things at Lowe's, and so if this development's not finished for the next 4 or 5 years, so let's say 2030, so from 2030 2008, that road's definitely going to be 20, 22 years old. Half of its life's definitely going to be over. I mean, that's a conservative estimate, if I think about it.
Well, it would certainly put those existing roads within the shopping center area, right at that 20-year threshold that we like to maintain.
But of course, if we were going to consider this, you would be doing testing and drilling and whatnot to determine if that road needed to be upgraded before it was brought into town.
That, if the decision is let's move forward and see what condition those roads are in and see what condition the storm drainage system's in, then yes, we would have a very good feel for what we need to do to go forward, whether it was, they've been well maintained, they were built very well to start with, and so we might get more than 20 years out of them, then that's certainly a factor for us to be able to ascertain.
It seems like if this is a possibility of considering, then having some testing would be a good baseline for us to make an informed decision on. But I do have some reservations about taking any of it on.
Yeah.
And it would be interesting if Catherine could get a little evaluation from MPO, would be helpful information as well.
Especially about the circle, because that feels dangerous, very dangerous to me.
I think the question about what's in it for the town, what's the benefit to the town is a valid question, because you're asking to make planned budget for councils that are going to be in session when we're not here anymore. And they're going to be going, how are we going to pay for this to bring them up to standards? So I have reservations about it as well.
Well, one of our other council members before us, he used to always say, if the public is not going to use those streets, the general public, then they shouldn't be town residential streets, because the general public's not going out there running up and down. That's really just the people who live in that area. And I think 3 years ago when we first started talking about this development, that was one of our biggest concerns, is because at first we thought it was going to be a gated community. And then once we figured out it was not going to be a gated community, he told us it was still going to be private roads, but that they were not going to be going in and out that back gate except for emergency situations, because a lot of what we were hearing 3 years ago was the people who do live on Gill Branch, the small little tertiary road. So I guess after dealing with this 3 years ago and then now again, I'd be glad for it just to stay the way it was originally approved.
I'm curious, I know that, First Victory, is that the correct name? So First Victory had acquired other lands along Gill Branch Road as well as the site that's indicated here. Were those conveyed to the new developer as well?
I believe all of those tracks were. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Allie Siebel. I work for Four Star. So we did buy the property back in November. There are some other properties, kind of as you're coming into what is the development that you guys approved, that First Victory or Travis has a bunch of different companies.
Yeah.
DKF, I believe, is the company that has retained a few of those tracks. So there's 5 altogether, and he has retained 2 of the 5. So he has plans that I'm not sure what he's going to do there. I've heard talks of a storage facility and some other maybe larger residential lots, but I'm not positive.
Okay, so you got this, the original site plus 3 of the additional 5 pieces.
So that original site is 5 total parcels that you see outlined there. And so he retained 2 of those, and I now own 3 of them.
I'm sure he has some plans.
I'm sure he does. He always has plans. And so just to speak to kind of everything that you guys have been talking about and why we decided to bring this in front of you is really my thought whenever we're going into building a residential community is what is best for the homeowners. So we're anticipating 596 units that are going to be a part of this development. And so when I think of potentially 2 to 3 people per household, looking at those numbers around, 1,500 to 2,000 people who are going to be driving those roads, I always think it is best if they are owned and maintained by the municipality. I know Jennifer spoke to the HOA, so we always do build into our HOA covenants that there is going to be money that's going to be paid in order to go into reserve fee to come back and fix the roads. But ultimately, that is 10 to 20 years down the line where then the homeowners vote on how they want those reserves to be used. And so if they're like, we don't really care, that's, we don't want to worry about the roads, that just is when you start to see your neighborhoods deteriorate. And unfortunately, at that point, that's when the developer is long gone and no longer has a say because we're not controlling that anymore. So that's why we originally looked at these roads becoming public roads. If you guys decide that it's best they stay private, that is not an issue. We do have things in place where we can, establish funding in order to be able to take care of them, but just knowing how highly trafficked that's going to be. And then speaking to the traffic circle, that really came up just because that 4-way stop with an additional, 1,500 trips being used along that road is really not the safest. So we did a traffic study on our own dime just to dive into that and see, and it does begin to fail at full build out of this community, with those roads still being private, and Four Star is currently only one aspect of the owner of those roads. There's 16 different companies that currently pay into maintaining those roads. We just really wouldn't have any say in what goes in there. If we get them taken as public, then the town would be able to say, yeah, this needs to be a 4-way stop because now we've done the traffic study and that's required. So right now I have 1/16 of a vote of what happens to that 4-way stop versus if the town.
I don't mean to interrupt, but
No,
so
you're fine.
the current ownership of these roads is not just with Four Star.
It's not, no.
And so can I assume the other owners are the companies within
Northridge Commons.
within Northridge Commons? Okay.
Correct, yeah. So there's a ownership and maintenance agreement that has 16 other people who kind of pay into a fund in order to maintain those roads.
Are they agreeable to your traffic circle?
They
so far?
haven't seen it. So, I figured I'd
Don't
start
say
go
Don't
there.
say
here
that.
and see. That is a harder conversation to get, all 16 people who are right now think the roads are fine and I don't live here and I don't
I
drive
wanna
those
pay
roads and I
more.
don't care, to say. So really just thinking what's best for those residents who are going to live there and have to exit out that way every day.
Well, it's true, I would agree that there's something that has to be done about that 4-way stop.
Yeah.
And it's flabbergasting how few people actually know how to go through a 4-way stop.
Yes.
Every time I go there, I'm like, no, it's not your turn.
Yeah.
But, if you put 2,000 more people through there, it's going to be a hell of a bottleneck.
Yes.
So I'm not really opposed to a traffic circle.
Yeah.
I think people who are opposed to traffic circles are the same people who are opposed to the metric system. It's just foreign to them. All right? They do work. They've been working in other places for a long, long time.
Yeah.
Maybe a 4-way stop, but you can't get a stoplight without DOT, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, that's, something's gonna have to give in that. So I'm a little more amenable to the commercial area of having a seat at the table, as Jennifer said. But I will say, I think at this point, I'm not really in tune with taking over the residential roads if it's not a through street.
But that brings up a good, since there's 16 people sitting at the table,
Yeah.
then rather just one of you being here with us, I wonder if the 16 people 16 companies couldn't form together and go to the NCDOT and ask them to get involved in whether or not they would take over the roads, because then they know exactly what a roundabout needs to look like and how big it needs to be.
So if Kimley
safely
Horn is
for
the
these
engineer
big
who-
trucks to converse.
Kimley Horn is the one who did the traffic study and proposed this roundabout, and they are an engineer for DOT as well as for Buncombe County, so.
But, you know, I find it really disheartening that somebody would design something for big trucks to go straight across and little cars to go around in a
Yeah,
circle.
I'm not positive, I mean, I know they looked at it and they were actually surprised because they originally didn't think that a traffic circle would fit there, and they, whatever the terminology is, something with a 90-degree radius that they fit in there, they said it fit perfectly. So I think the ability to go over would just be in an emergency situation. But I can definitely dive in more to that to see. It wasn't any kind of like, compromised traffic circle that they put in. They looked to make sure that, a standard traffic circle would fit there. So they talked about an example that's actually in South Carolina, which is where I'm from, in Travelers Rest, that they showed me, that is at where a Walmart is and a Chick-fil-A and the Starbucks. And that's the one they showed me, so.
Based on what I've heard tonight, I'm not at this point in favor of the town taking over the roads. It's, there's a lot of factors, complications and so forth. So I need to say we table it until we can get some more information, or I'm prepared to say no tonight.
So I'm curious, what are the chances of getting DOT to take over these roads?
I don't know, we haven't entered into that conversation. but I think
Because
it's-
if they were DOT roads, that would solve our problem of connecting city roads to city roads.
Mhm. Yeah. I've never broached DOT about taking over private roads, so that would be a first.
They got a lot of them.
I know.
Any more questions? So it sounds, does everyone kind of agree with Councilman Jackson's statement?
I do.
So we're not ready to take any action at this point, but we are happy to hear any new developments or information that you get. And if you would share the information, the design information you have with Councilman Cordell, she's on the Metropolitan Planning Organization, thank you.
Yeah.
And she'll take it there and see what she can find out.
That sounds great. Thank you so much. It was great to meet everyone.
Thank you. Next up is item C, Maple Trace Streets and Stormwater Update. Again, Assistant Manager Jackson, what you know?
So this seemed like a good time to provide town council with a little bit of an update from December of 2024, where you took action to annex the Maple Trace subdivision and also adopt a resolution concerning the public street commitment to take those in, or acceptance to take those in. That resolution had essentially 5 conditions in it. They have, the HOA has made their payment, so they have deposited a total of $134,000 with the town. There was one defect that was noted in the stormwater assessment. That work was due to be completed on Friday, but I think it's almost completed. But that work is certainly underway. There were 35 catch basins that needed to be grouted or regrouted. That has been completed. And then there was a flushing of 37 sections of pipe. I'm going to come back to, that work is estimated. They have contracted with TP Howard, who the town is familiar with. They've done a lot of work for us in and around the town, including some of our emergency work related to Helene, I believe. But they had a $24,500 cost for the flushing of those 37 sections of pipe. Which led to Maple Trace. Jeff Niffen is the president of the HOA, and he reached out to me and kind of said, we need some help. We've done everything that we can do, and we just would really like to postpone the flushing of those lines to next year due to some financial constraints. You've got a spreadsheet in there that he provided showing that they have already spent $195,732 to date on annexation and streets and stormwater issues related to the annexation. And they just asked that they can, they're not trying to get out of the flushing, but they asked that be delayed until next year. Public Works Director Pennell, he always has the town's best interest in mind and risk associated with taking actions, perhaps out of order. And so he has some concern about going ahead and taking the streets in, paving that front section with the $134,000, going ahead and doing that work, all the while delaying the flushing of the line that might show a repair that needs to happen. Because once you take the streets in, you're taking the stormwater infrastructure that's within those streets, the inlets and pipes that connect along the side of the roads. So he's cautious, and he would prefer to just delay the street acceptance and the paving of that until after the flushing is done. Town Manager Harris and I understood the sort of the dilemma that the HOA is in. They've spent almost $200,000 of their residents' money, and right now they really don't have anything except an annexation ordinance to show for it. And so I think they would prefer to go ahead and have the roads accepted. Let's get that front section paved on the promise that they will do that flushing and any repair work next year. Did you want to say anything, or just to answer questions?
No, I mean the flushing. You know, if you'd seen those. I said we spent, like I said, close to $200,000 already on this. On the annexation and doing everything that we were required to do as far as the testing and so on. As far as the catch basins, we got all those done. That was like, we got that done also, and everything else that the town required us to do, we have done. And we spent a lot of money on this, like I said, close to $200,000. The flushing itself, is they wanted about $24,500 due to flushing, which seemed like an awful large amount of money to have that done. And we were thinking, well, it's probably because with everything else that's been going on with the storm that we had in the fall and stuff like that, that they've probably raised a lot of their costs on that. The second thing is we looked back at the amount of debris that are in those pipes. It's only like 5, 10, 15%, if that. I mean, it's very, very little. And so with all the other rain we've had, a lot of those are probably cleaner since we did those tests. But I don't see that as, that should be really, hold this whole process up at this point, just those flushings, where it's not going to cause any kind of disaster as far as having 5% or 10% of maybe sediment, from what was washed down the streets into those, and we got the catch basins, so nothing could leak in there, that we go forward and get this paving done. I mean, you can understand all the homeowners, the 134 homeowners, when I go to a meeting, I've got to explain where all our money's gone. And like I said, close to $200. Yeah, we are proud to be part of Weaverville. There's no question about that. We love the garbage and the recycle pickup. I mean, that's terrific. They're cutting our cost of water. But people really want to see more. And I just can't see this flushing holding up, getting that front area paved for us, with everything that we've done so far. And we've come, and agreed and done what the town has asked us. And we're just asking them, hey, just give us a break on this one. We will get that done right after the first of the year. I don't see what harm it would be by not doing it right now. Appreciate it.
Thank you. What question, do you all have any questions?
I guess I have one question or two questions. One, Jennifer, when will the town see taxes from Maple Trace, or will that not happen until we do this?
This year, the next
The following year.
tax bills, yep, FY '26.
And then my other question is actually for Mr. Pennell. Is this a paving year for us, Dale, or would this be a one-off? Because I know we get a better deal when it's actually a paving year.
We have, at this time, around $500,000 plus or minus in our paving money from last year's money that we actually saved money last year. So we've moved that to this year along with the money that was already budgeted for this year. So we have about $500,000 directly of town money plus the $134,000 that came from Maple Trace. So we are going to do a paving project this year. I'm trying to get that out and bid so that y'all can award a contract in June for that. So yes, we are planning to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Great.
And I have a question about infrastructure, stormwater, which Dale might be able to answer. So the part of the road that's going to be paved is near the entrance, and is that where all the stormwater basically is conveyed and out of the subdivision, or does it go somewhere else? I don't have.
It goes in several directions.
So, okay.
Some comes out that area. There's a stormwater pond near where their mailboxes are that discharges under the road and into Reems Creek. There's a stormwater basin near the first intersection as you come into the development, where the road either goes straight or turns to the left, and to your right is a stormwater basin there that collects a good bit of stormwater and discharges out as well. And then there's other scattered areas throughout the development.
So worst case scenario, it gets paved, there's a bad stormwater event, and we have some subsurface problems. Is that a scenario that could happen?
No, the issue that I'm concerned about is that we have 37 sections of pipe that we have video evidence that there's accumulations of debris, and that's sediment, that's sand, that's rock, that's concrete chunks and different things in it. And what I'm concerned about is after the roads are all finished, and if they're taken over by the town prior to the flushing work, then we've got accumulated debris in pipes, and heavy rains might push some or all of that from one section of pipe, and it's caught in the next section of pipe. And then that's repeated until we've got a stoppage in the pipe that could cause a break in the pipe or a leak in the pipe and a sinkhole above it, and the road collapses, and then they're our roads, and we have to fix that then. And given where we are in our current budget and where we may be with our upcoming budget, we just don't have a lot of that kind of money in the Public Works Street Division budget to do many repairs.
And remind me one more thing, the cammering, was that done prior to Helene or post Helene?
Wow.
Sorry. I think it was prior, but I just need to refresh.
I'm
almost positive that it was prior, yes.
My non-engineering question would be for Dale and John is, didn't Hurricane Helene kind of provide a great flushing?
I don't know the answer to that. It could have flushed some, it could have pushed some, and now there's a blockage waiting to be the next problem. We don't know that unless you want to re-video the whole thing, or unless you want to flush this. And I will mention that the town, in asking that flushing be done, I committed for our public works crews to be present for the flushing, bringing our truck there to provide the water, and to be there with our vacuum truck to vacuum the debris out of the catch basins that might be flushed out of a section of pipe, so we could remove that when it's flushed downstream, and we'll have a crew that'll be there while that work's being done to assist in doing this. That's how important it is to us.
Is there a schedule for the paving to take place in Maple Trace?
It's part of the project that I'll be getting out to bid, and then when you approve it, we're doing that so that work can be done this summer and fall.
I might make a wacky suggestion. What if we were to float them the money and then bill them in January, maybe even with a modicum of interest? I don't know. Let's just get it done.
Let's get it done.
And if they can't pay, then, okay, we'll bill you.
So So you're suggesting that we would just loan them the money for the flushing test, the
Yeah,
$24,000?
$24,500.
That's a
But,
smart,
yeah.
wacky suggestion.
Yeah, we've left them the money for that, but if the damages come up, then they still have to figure out how to fix those
Yeah.
before it, I mean.
That would be either way.
It's just
But,
a
you know, it might make
one-piece
both parties
transaction.
happy, you know, I mean, we're happy because the flushing's done, they're happy because we get to move forward. I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
Let them alone.
What do y'all think? Seems like a pretty good
I
idea.
think it's a good idea.
Everybody okay with that idea?
And just from a legal point of view, I think you make a good point. I think that the town would have to charge some interest rate, you know,
Small.
doesn't have to be a lot, it just needs to be something.
What's the AFR now, about 4 or 4.5?
4 or 5,
Yeah.
so it's not much.
Okay, good deal. Any other questions?
So y'all wanna work on that?
What do y'all think?
What do you think?
No, with Maple Trace.
What was the,
We'll-
you come up with, I'm sorry?
We'll pay for it and bill you.
That's fine, and maybe you can get it at a cheaper price than 24,000. I mean, the bid that we've got from them for the 24,000, everything that Dale mentioned, we told that company, that engineering company, that they were going to help us, and they still come up with that price. So that was our concern. The other thing, the part of the road that's going to be paved, where Dale was talking about that catch basin, that's on one side of the road that collects some water, and all it does is go underneath the road. The majority of all those big pipes, and we did the, you know, all the search on those pipes that we did, the scanning of all that stuff, all those pictures and everything, was done even prior to the storm. So I think if there was any real problems with this sediment or anything built up there, I think we would have had it with the storm by now. And there again, you know, it was only 5 or 10%. But the section of the road there's one other catch basin, and that goes underneath the road on the other side. All the main pipes, there's 16 that he's talking about, are in the main part of where the homes are that go into the main pond. They don't even go down to where the road part that we're asking to be paved. That has nothing to do with all those, majority of those pipes.
So we're just trying to get this done for you by saying.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine, and maybe you can get a cheaper price. We'd be more than willing to do that, but we'd pay you next year, yes. Okay.
Everybody good?
Yeah.
Excellent. Smart suggestion, Councilman
We have
McGuire.
any more
So what
comments
will-
from staff?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, what we'll do based on this is we'll revise a resolution and bring it back to you.
Excellent, thank you very much. Excuse me. Next item is 7D, the non-discrimination ordinance, and you all recall a couple of months ago, we voted to approve and develop a non-discrimination ordinance. Our attorney, Mr. Frew, luckily has simplified and shortened the original version that we had, and I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Frew now to explain that.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. As directed several months ago, we went back to the drawing board with a non-discrimination ordinance and bring you, specific to Weaverville, ordinance that prohibits discrimination in places of public accommodation and in employment. I surveyed all the local governments in the state that have non-discrimination ordinances, and I found that the Buncombe County ordinance was by far the most complicated and lengthy. So now we're down to 3 pages plus a signature page, so it's much more down and to the point. Just a few things that the public might need to be aware. I mean, what's a public accommodation? So that's a place, facility, store that opens itself up for the public to come in or offer services to the public. A public accommodation is not a religious organization or the activities of a religious organization, and it's not a nonprofit, fraternal, or social organization, so it's not a private club, which offers its facilities and services to members and their guests. So what this ordinance really does is focus on conciliation. It's not set up to have a hammer to try to force compliance. There is no criminal penalty involved, and if a complaint is substantiated, what the town would offer is a right to sue letter. You can go ahead and bring your private cause of action against the respondent and try to get relief yourself through the courts. What this does is it avoids the courts altogether, and we have take several swings at conciliation efforts. So a complaint would come in, and this is through the procedures documents, it's not in the ordinance itself, but the town manager has directed staff, that's the Civil Rights Coordinator, and she wears many hats, and she is present here today. First thing that would happen would be if a complaint comes in, and that could be through the internet, it could be in writing, it could be delivered in hand or by email. And several different easy ways to do that. You would go to several different town mailboxes. The first thing that would occur is that the clerk would take a swing at it and make sure that the complaint is complete. All the sections of the complaint form are filled out, that it's signed, and it says under penalty of perjury. We want to make sure that people are not trying to bring something or make a mountain out of a molehill. We want to make sure that it's a serious complaint. The protected classes, again, are the same that the town adopted several years ago, and we could take a swing through that. But again, the important part is that there's exceptions. So for public accommodation, the exceptions are for religion and private clubs. And for employment, the exceptions are for bona fide occupational qualifications. So, for instance, police and fire might have certain agility standards they have to meet in order to take a position with the department. Sometimes there's situations where a person's long hair would have to be somehow contained, and they couldn't just wear their long hair through the employment process. If there's machinery or whatnot that might get hooked or in trouble. But it'd be up to the employer in those situations to demonstrate that any accommodation or change in their standards would cause an undue hardship. So that wouldn't be for the town to substantiate, it would be for the employer. So several efforts, once a completed application is made, the Civil Rights Coordinator would send a letter and invite informal conciliation efforts. Let's sit down, find out what the problem is. Can we make different minds agree on a reasonable solution? If that does not work, then we have communicated with the mediation center in town. They would have a formal mediation process, and the town wouldn't be privy to how that process is resolved, except that we would just ask, is it resolved or did you reach an impasse? And that's really all the information that the mediation center could supply. It would be as if any lawyer in town filed a lawsuit and the judge requires you to go to mediation. But those are confidential, so that's between the parties. Hopefully they can work something out. If that does not work, then they'd take it to a staff review, and that'd be the Civil Rights Coordinator again, would look at the complaint, any answer by the respondent that may have been filed, and just try to make findings and report that back to the parties. The parties may not be happy with that decision. If they're not happy with that decision, then within 15 days, the complainant or the respondent could file for request an appeal, and that would be heard by a panel. And I don't know if you're on that panel, but you are on that panel, the town manager, the attorney, and chief of police. And that'd just be, wouldn't take witnesses, it wouldn't be a formal, it'd just be look at what's the record, what's the complaint, what's the response, what else was submitted, and try to get that done. So again, at the end of the day, if the complainant is not happy, or if they find that the complaint is substantiated, they get the private right to sue letter, and they would be able to proceed on their own. So again, there's no enforcement mechanism built into the town, but the town manager is recommending, I think, $3,000 for mediation fees at the mediation center, which the town would agree to take those costs. That would cover, I think, 6 such, if they made it that far. So if there's any other particular questions, I'll be glad to try to answer or get a pinch hit from Ms. Jackson if need be.
Does anyone have any questions? Would someone like to make a motion to take action on this item?
I'll move that the ordinance amending town code to prohibit discrimination in places of public accommodations and in employment be adopted as written as amended.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Good work, folks. Appreciate you. Next item up is... Yes, thanks for shortening it.
Good work. I wanted to add just one other commentary on that, we talked about adding Jennifer as assistant town manager, and we've wrung our hands over the NDO about who's going to police it. Well, this is perfect. We have a person, we hired a person. This is exactly what we're doing. I mean, this is why we do it.
There you go. Good solution.
Thank you.
Next item up is 7E, budget discussion. We've had a few meetings about the budget, and tonight you have an opportunity again to voice any comments or recommendations to the town manager. But I'd also like to remind you that we do have a workshop on May 13th, which will be devoted mostly to finalizing our budget. Are there any comments or recommendations you want to make to the manager at this point? Okay, save them up for May 13th. Moving on to item 7F is a quarterly report from Planning Director Eller.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We're getting used to the new arrangement over here. I'm scared to death my seat's going to come out from under me. Good to be up on my feet. Let's see here, beginning on page 81 of your packet, that is correct. You'll find the cover sheet, and then on the following page, you'll find the Planning Department quarterly report for the first quarter of calendar year 2025. Hopefully these numbers are self-evident, but I will pause for a moment before I take the opportunity to speak to you about Senate Bill 382 to ask if you have any questions about any of the items contained in the staff report. Seeing none, hearing none, moving right along to Senate Bill 382. Portion of the Disaster Recovery Act of 2024, more commonly known as Senate Bill 382, significantly alters the ability of local governments to downzone a property. What is downzoning? Do you further limit the development potential of a property? Do you increase the setback? Do you lower a height limit? Do you prohibit a use from a zoning district? These would be lessening the development potential of a property. Now, Senate Bill 382, which has been enacted and is currently law, it doesn't say that you can't do it. It says that you have to obtain the consent of the property owner. So let's just imagine a hypothetical situation that I'll make up on the fly. If we, the royal we in this case, decide that the front yard setback in the R1 zoning district should be 35 feet instead of 30 feet. You've absorbed another 5 feet of a property owner's property, therefore lessen the development potential of that property. We would have to obtain the consent of every single property owner in the R1 zoning district in order to make sure that that text amendment is actually applicable. Highly unlikely to occur. What I see as most problematic moving forward is if we enumerate a new use, something that we haven't encountered yet, something that we haven't considered. We inject that into the table of uses and we prohibit that in the zoning district. You would have to acquire the consent of every single property owner in that zoning district. Unlikely to happen. But again, this is current law and we are obligated to follow that. That being said, back in February, staff was able to attend some webinars and things of that nature to better educate ourselves on what precisely this means moving forward. School of Government at this point in that webinar, answers to most of those questions are, it is unclear, it is unclear, it is unclear. We don't know. Go get sued so we know what to tell everybody else. Right. That being said, given that we have no choice, we did take a text amendment to the planning board in February based upon a text amendment that would be required based on this bill. At this point, there have been a House bill and a Senate bill filed that would alter that. Right. And those are included in your packet of information as well. So in our conversations with the planning board that night, we decided we're already here, we've already done our homework, let's go ahead and get the recommendation that, again, we don't have a choice on at this point, but let's just put it on ice because this may change. And that is still the case now. Just wanted to let you know where we were there, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have, and hopefully I can be a little better than it is unclear. So, fire away.
Anyone have any questions about HB 382? Perfect. So this is an unfortunate bill, another unfortunate attempt by the state to limit what local governments can do. So I will say that I have had a conversation with Senator Mayfield, who introduced one of the bills to do away with it. She feels very positive about it. She's getting, apparently gathering a lot of support, so let's hope that she's going to be successful in ridding ourselves of this.
We wish her best in there.
There you go. Her success is unclear. Any other questions? Any other questions for Mr. Eller?
No.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Up next is 7G, quarterly report from Finance. Finance Director Dozier.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I do have the third quarter report for you tonight. So if we want to start on page 89, looking at our revenues, which we've been watching very closely lately. So year over year, our revenues are slightly higher, which is always good to see. A couple areas we are a little bit concerned about. Ad valorem taxes are fine. We've already almost reached our budget number for the year. We're only a couple thousand short of that, and still 3 months to go of collections. So I think we'll be 30-some thousand higher than budget in the ad valorem taxes. Sales tax is a little bit below latest year in projection. I have us at about 5% below budget, which is about $110,000. But the overages between the ad valorem, the DMV, and the utilities, which are all general fund revenues, will more than make up for that shortage in the sales tax. Overall, I still see us with a positive variance. Buncombe County Fire Protection is about 7% below budget right now, or about $150,000. Fire fund is a separate fund. They have their own fund balance, so it would just reduce their fund balance if it were to end with a negative balance. And water revenue is about 4% below budget, or $114,000. So a little bit below. It's not what we're used to seeing, but not alarming in any way. Expenditures on the next page are all in check. Unless you have any questions on the detail, we'll jump ahead to the project funds. If you look on page 101, this is the
I'm sorry,
recreation.
Tanya, you can go back to, your graphs are great, by the way. But the ad valorem tax, the projected, the prorated budget for the upcoming, for the current year is down, that's a considerable decline.
It's just that's 3 quarters of the year, so don't worry about that budget
Thank you,
number.
never mind.
Yeah, it really only works if things come in evenly throughout the year.
Gotcha.
I should just take that budget number out, actually. So back to page 101 on the rec complex. This capital project we've had open for several years now. I'd really love to close it out. We keep telling the auditor each year we're going to get it closed out this year. It's basically, as you know, up and running. What we will be asking you at the next budget workshop, is there anything further you want to do with this project? Do you want to leave it as is? Are you happy with the pavilion that's there? Are there any further modifications you want to make? If so, we're fine to go forward with it. If not, we'd like to close it out. But if you want to think about that before our budget workshop. The next 2 pages are the water treatment plant expansion and the resiliency project. You'll see we've had a little more movement on the, with engineering fees on those 2. That project for the generators does go out to bid this month, I believe, right? It's out to bid. Okay. Hopefully by next month, we'll be coming to you with your approval to move forward with the installation on that. And then finally, on page 104 is the Helene Disaster Response and Recovery Grant Fund that we set up. In the cumulative total column, you'll see we spent $1.096 million so far on relief funds. As you know, we received $1.8 million back in October, so we have not yet had to dip into any of our cash to fund anything, and it's still our belief that we'll be fully reimbursed between FEMA, between federal and state, will be fully reimbursed for all of our storm-related expenses. Any questions on that before we talk about budget amendments for just a minute. So as town manager mentioned earlier, just to answer some questions that have come up. So budget amendments, anything that changes the overall budget. If revenues go up in any way, if expenditures go up in any way, anything that changes the bottom line has to come before you for your approval. We can't spend $30 donation that the police received without you approving it, put it in the budget before we can spend it. What we can do is move money around within each department. And actually on the budget amendment you have in your packet, that bottom section, section 12 of the budget ordinance, that very bottom section of these budget amendments you see, explains that the town manager has approval, has authority to approve movement within a department. Anything between departments has to come to you for approval, and nothing can be transferred between funds without your approval. But as part of the budget process each year, we go line by line through each department. We look at where we are, where we expect to end the year, what we think we'll need for next year, and that helps us budget for the coming year. And then usually by the fourth quarter coming up, we'll see where we have overages, where we're short. And then the department heads will make requests to the town manager to move some funds to cover. Sometimes they'll hold off on things that might be really important but not super critical to fourth quarter, because some years we've had vehicle maintenance, unexpected vehicle repairs can be sky high. If we don't have the funds, then we're coming back to you to ask for a budget amendment to pull from fund balance. One year, if you remember, we had 2 HVAC units go out here at Town Hall. We recently paid, I think, $17,000 for a hot water heater at the fire department. So we have aging buildings, aging facilities and vehicles. And sometimes we need to move money around unexpectedly to cover things like that. And then, of course, as you know, any funds unspent at the end of the year revert to fund balance. So on an average year, I would say about 5% of our general fund budget, or about $500,000, and that's where revenues have come in higher, where expenditures are below budget. That's going to revert back to fund balance. So that amount usually can be used in the next year's budget and still keep your fund balance unchanged. Does that make sense?
It made good sense.
Questions? I can
Everybody
answer?
get it?
What kind of hot water heater costs $17,000?
I was gonna say, what guys almost have fancy water.
One
heaters.
that's suspended up.
Lots of showers.
I don't know.
Yes. But I had to rent a lift to bring in there to get to the water heater and everything else. It was a challenging job, apparently. So, I mean, I can assure you, you're not any more floored than I was when I saw that view from it, so.
That must be a big tank.
And any purchase, anything over $1,000 requires a purchase order, which town manager has to approve and the finance officer has to approve.
Any questions? Thank you for that good explanation.
Okay, thank you.
Our last item up tonight is 7H, a quarterly report from the Community Center, and Community Center Director Desario is up.
Hello, everyone, Mayor and Town Council. I also have some additional material just to hand out for you guys to look at. All right, I'll be giving you a snapshot of the quarterly report here. This will be short and sweet. Let's start with the private rentals. So to the best of my knowledge, I went back and looked at, there was some question about how many rentals were being done by residents versus non-residents. So this is what we found utilizing the software that we have. Basically, it's divided up, resident 23%, non-resident 77%. So then that brings us to a total quarter revenue, rental revenue of around $19,000, a little over $19,000. And next, there's some different things that we're making changes on at the community center. So if I understand right from the town council and what I'm hearing also from Weaverville staff is we're pivoting a little bit away from having an enormous amount of rentals that are going on during the weekends. So we've kind of limited the amount of rentals. We've instituted a weekend rental limit. So initially, when we did this, we just basically limited it to 2 rentals per weekend day. So 2 on Saturday, 2 on Sunday, to make it more sustainable. And since that time, we've actually gone even further and limited it to 1 rental per weekend day and seeing how that's doing. So it definitely seems more sustainable, but keep in mind as we put these restraints and limits, as we institute these, basically this is going to be for the future. A lot of these events and rentals that are happening now have been planned for several months. So a lot of what's happening now at the community center is basically it's stuff that's been in the works for a little bit, and so there's still quite a bit of events that are happening on Saturday and Sunday, sometimes up to 8 events at a time. Another thing that we have in the works is basically we're simplifying the rental fee schedule, and that's if the current fee schedule that we have has a bunch of various pricing and discounts for quite a bit of people. We're looking to combine those discounts, streamline those things. And then what we'd like to do is actually have a fee increase for across the board for the pricing at the community center. And it would be a smaller increase for the residents and then a more substantial increase for non-residents. And as we limit the amount of rentals that happen on the weekends, hopefully this will increase our ability to maintain the facility more. Right now, we are finding that the building is also needs certain repairs. There's other things such as painting, touch-ups, that kind of stuff, that if there's events booked back to back, it's really hard to get to those and allow things to dry or set or any of those things. Never mind if any works, if any work needs to be done on the parking lot or any landscaping or hardscaping or anything like that. So in that packet that I passed out, you'll also see a little flyer too that my coworker Kate designed. The fee schedule is blank because that's still in the works, but that's a little flyer that we can pass out to people that are renting. So we're just trying to do little things here and there to make things a little bit easier and a little bit more streamlined down at the community center. Also, speaking of that, so that's another thing that happened this quarter that I didn't have up there is a change in staff where Maddie Oberlin transitioned into facilities maintenance and Kate Krasonik came on as my associate down at the community center. Next, community programs, a little bit of sunshine to end us at the meeting. So not a whole lot has changed in the amount of frequency over the last 3 months, or even since I came on as director, with the amount of programs that are happening here. So pretty much a few programs timed out where their series ended, that sort of thing. But the amount of programs that you see here, that's been going on for a couple of years, which is pretty amazing. Over 20 different community programs occurring every month, ranging in frequency to once a month to twice a week, and then varying in size from 15 attendees to around 60, which is unbelievable. Classes are led by amazing volunteers who have verbalized to us that they intend to continue to do what they do. They love it, and it's life-giving to them. And you can see here the various community programs that we have that are offered for free at the beautiful community center. And I have to say, we've reached out to the instructors to talk to them because also, I mean, these are volunteers. These are people that are giving up their time to do these classes. But what is amazing is the relationship between the community center and what's happening with the instructors is it's benefiting both of us. These instructors get fulfilled from instructing. So they love being a part of what and teaching about what they're passionate about. And that's amazing because we get to benefit from the fact that they're passionate about these things, and then the community gets to benefit because they come there every day to get restored or refilled or whatever you want to call it. Good things are happening there, and it's because of the type of volunteer and energy that these people put out, or that the energy that these volunteers put out. Other community events that happened between January and now are storytelling events. You have a couple of different storytellers down there. Becky and Pat Stone, Deb and Deb from In Other Words, I went to that one, it was great. Andy Irwin, there was 2 theatrical performances, mostly in her words by the Artisan Players, and then A Trip to Bountiful by Third Eye Production. And then we also had music on the Knoll, which happened. That's the John Henrys, and then also Underhill Rose. We had a show scheduled for January, but that was canceled because of ice. So, and that same person, I think it's Chris Rosser, he's actually been scheduled for the summer series. So, what's in works with the community center is, because these instructors are so passionate about what they're doing and their classes are so full, we've asked about expanding some of their programming. And then it works in our favor again, because a lot of these programs happen during the workday. So if people are wanting to attend an exercise class at night, it's not necessarily available. But there are several instructors that are now open to doing some evening classes as well. So we're trying to expand our net a little bit to allow people that are still working to take some of these classes too. And additionally, we're utilizing Fridays particularly with an intent to begin family programs or classes like toddler time, story time, crafts, movie night. And then we're just kind of adding some what I call cozy touches around the community center, some welcoming decor in the building, plants that are easy to relocate for people that are renting, and then a community board for the attendees to utilize to post stuff if they need to. And then also we hope to get a chalkboard that welcomes people with inspirational quotes or something exciting like that. The next thing that we have is I've reached out to several different school art teachers, and we are looking to institute a rotating gallery within the community center. So as you walk in to the right, there's a hallway that goes down to the kitchen. On the left, there's quite a few feet of bare space. So we've basically put a line there, and we're going to utilize that as a rotating gallery to feature artwork from all ages. Specifically now I'm going to start with some of the school artwork from a couple different elementary school teachers and then middle school teachers that have offered to put in some work that they thought was exceptional. So we'll keep the work for a temporary amount of time and then give it back to the students. So you can see here, there's just a couple different pictures of some plants, the community board, and then I put some pictures up. There'll be more full than that, but that will be where the rotating art gallery is. And that's it for me. I know this is my first quarterly report, so if there's information that I'm not giving you, please let me know. I'd love to fill in the gaps next time.
Does anyone have any questions or comments for Mr. Desario?
Are Fridays going to be available for rental, or are we trying to block them off completely?
We're trying to block them off currently.
Any others?
Okay.
Thank you for a very positive report. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, guys.
Is there anything else that needs to come before this board this evening, y'all?
Mr. Mayor, just one thing regarding your Touch It Truck program. It'll be Sunday, May the 4th from 11 to 1 at Firehouse Subs. So Sunday, May the 4th from 11 to 1. But I'll still send you something out, but I went back through my emails, looked at it, and that's when.
So I got to tell you, Glenda Weiner, who's the owner, invited me to come on the 3rd. That was probably a trick on her part. Is there anything else? Then we're adjourned. Thank you.
Excellent.